The once glorious mansion in Banana Island now felt like a prison of silence. Kemi sat in her grand living room, staring blankly at the untouched glass of wine in her hand. It had been 3 months since her mother left. 3 months of nightmares, guilt, and an unshakable emptiness. But that wasn't the worst of it. Her company was collapsing. First, her biggest investors pulled out. Then, a major government contract was revoked over corruption allegations. Allegations she knew nothing about. The media had a field day, dragging her name through the mud. Madam Kemi, her assistant, Tayo, said hesitantly, "The board is calling for an emergency meeting." Kemi sighed. "What now?" Tayo hesitated. They want you to step down as CEO." The words hit like a thunderclap. Kemi's grip tightened on her glass. "They wouldn't dare." "They have no choice," Tayo whispered. "The shareholders are losing faith." Kemi stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. "Get out," she said coldly. Tayo bowed his head and left, leaving Kemi alone with the ruins of her empire. That night, the nightmares returned. She was a child again, sitting on her mother's lap. "Mama," young Kemi whispered, "will you always love me?" Mama Kemi's warm hand stroked her hair. "Always, my child." Then suddenly the vision shifted. Kemi was in her mansion, wearing her fine clothes. Mama Kemi was on the floor, scrubbing tiles. "Useless woman," Kemi's own voice echoed in the dream. "You are just the help." She saw her mother's face fall. Then a single tear slipped from her eye. The moment it hit the ground, the entire dream shattered like glass. Kemi woke up gasping. Her chest felt tight. She rushed to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. Was it a curse? She remembered the whispers of her staff. A mother's tears are powerful. Could this be punishment for what she had done? For the first time in years, Kemi felt fear. And for the first time in her life, she knew what she had to do. She had to find her mother. Tracking Mama Kemi wasn't easy. She had left no trace, no phone calls, no messages, nothing. It was as if she had disappeared from the world. Kemi started with Mushin, returning to the small, cramped room where they once lived. The new tenant, an elderly woman, shook her head. "She left after you became rich," she said. "No one knows where she went." Next, she searched old markets, asking vendors who might remember her mother. An Akara seller pointed towards Ibadan. "I heard she went back home," she said. "To the village." Kemi wasted no time. She got into her car, leaving behind the life of wealth and power she had built. Her journey had begun. Deep in the Yoruba village of Ogbomosho, Mama Kemi sat outside a small mud house, weaving a mat. She had found peace among her people. Away from the noise of the city, away from the pain of betrayal. She worked in a local orphanage, cooking and cleaning for children who had no one. The sun was setting when she heard the sound of a car approaching. A black Range Rover pulled up. Mama Kemi's heart clenched. She knew who it was before the door even opened. Kemi stepped out, wearing a simple boo-boo gown, her once glamorous jewelry gone. For the first time in years, she looked like the daughter Mama Kemi once knew. Their eyes met. For a long time, no words were spoken. Finally, Kemi took a step forward, then another, until she was kneeling at her mother's feet. "Mama," her voice cracked, "please forgive me." Mama Kemi's hands trembled. She had dreamed of this moment. She had prayed for it. But the pain was still deep. "You threw me away, Kemi," she said softly. "You made me a maid in your house. You called me just the help." Kemi broke down in sobs. "I was blind, Mama," she cried. "I thought money was everything. I thought power made me important. But I was wrong. I lost everything, my company, my peace. I lost you." Mama Kemi's eyes filled with tears. For all her anger, she was still a mother, and a mother's love never dies. She bent down, lifting Kemi into her arms, just as she had done when she was a child. "You are my daughter," she whispered. "You will always be my daughter." And for the first time in years, Kemi felt whole again. Kemi stayed in the village for weeks. She cooked with her mother. She worked at the orphanage. She learned the value of humility. And slowly, she found peace. One day, a black SUV arrived. It was Tunde. "Kemi," he said, stepping out. "The board is offering you a second chance." Kemi smiled. "I don't need it." Tunde blinked in shock. "What?" Kemi turned to her mother. "I have a new business now." Mama Kemi smiled. Together, they had started a foundation for single mothers and struggling families, using the wealth Kemi once hoarded to help others. This was her true purpose. Years later, a new building opened in Lagos. The Mama Kemi Women's Center, a place for struggling mothers to find support, training, and opportunity. At the opening ceremony, Kemi stood beside her mother, dressed in a simple Ankara gown, happier than she had ever been. As she took the microphone, she looked at Mama Kemi and said, "Everything I am, I owe to you." The crowd erupted in applause. But all Kemi cared about was the proud smile on her mother's face. For the first time in a long time, she had her mother's love again. And this time, she would never let it go. The end.